Today, she's the only intercoastal class wooden saltwater steamer hauling passengers in the United States, certified by the Coast Guard. I originally was a tugboat captain, and we've spent 46 years in this business now, and I find it more important to me to keep this boat running than to make a lot of money right now. Okay. Well, I guess we better get on the go here.
Just tending the firebox to make sure everything's according to what the chief needs. We have enough fuel coming into the firebox, and check around and make sure that, well, we haven't got a valve up here to be able to reach it, and making sure that everything's well lubed. She's a well-oiled machine. What's kept her going all these years.
Put a little tiny bit more oil.
Well, this is the galley. She's not designed to cook food, but it's catered. So we set tables in here for a walkthrough, and this is the original coffee pot. It's steam fired.
You done?
It's a steam oven. We're certified for 340 passengers, so sometimes we get a line down one side coming to the food here, and the boat will be laying over on its side about 5 degrees. I can always tell up above when they're starting to eat. But originally, this was freight deck. The stairs there weren't here. All that was gone. And these stanchions here, these pipes, they weren't there. There was a freight elevator in this deck that was operated by steam, and they could move heavy freight down here, Model A's, horses and buggies, and they could back them up and stand them in here. So a lot of wheat and hay and stuff like that was carried on the boat. So, yeah, she made 13 stops down the west side of Vashon Island every day, and certain days twice a day from Tacoma to Seattle. It was about 140-mile double round trip a day, and did it like clockwork, never missed a beat. Run 340,000 miles between 1922 and 1938. Well, I started here in Tacoma at the Old Town dock, which is down in this waterway, and then she would come directly up to Anderson's float right here, and then she would go on and hit these various stops. Just zigzag the shortest route across. And just go here and here. Sometimes you'd stop at some of them, if there was no sign of people at the stop, they wouldn't stop there. They'd just keep going. But usually they'd have a big bell on the pier, or a big tin can they'd pound on. And you could hear her, see her coming, you'd make all this racket, and then she'd stop in there. And if it was really foggy, of course, you didn't have no radar in those days or anything, and she would whistle. The echo sound along the shore, you get an echo from a whistle. In the density of fog, the sound travels 1,500 feet a second. So if you whistled right here and it went in and hit this beach and come back to you, you time it at 1,500 feet a second divided by 2, and you knew how far off the shore you were. So that's how they got around the old days. They had to stop here, they'd make so much racket, they wouldn't have no trouble finding the pier. Same way here. So this is the original Virginia. It was called the Virginia Merrill. It was a small tug, gas powered, and the farmers bought it from a logging company up in Shelton, and they added the house from here back to give passenger protection. And they outgrew the usefulness of it pretty fast, and then they moved on to other vessels. This is that gas tug. This was the two. They built this boat, and then they bought this one. This is the one that got the engine into the Tyrus, which became the Virginia 4. And then they built this boat for that machinery in 1922.
This is an oil pressure pump. This is a pump that circulates the water. Coming from it, it condenses and circulates it back to the boiler. Bearings for the shaft, so before every trip we always go around and make sure there's plenty of oil. It's just nice and gravity dripping onto the bearings as we're trimming.
Is that your job?
That's among other things. You hear people getting the keys to the boat, so in this case you need the matches. We always have a good match supply so that we can light the torch that lights the fire. This is what we need to start the boat.
That's where it all starts, huh?
Tension matches, that's right. Without these, we don't go anywhere.
That's good, that's good.
Pump, the air pump, the circulator pump, feed pump. You have all those pumps that have to keep running all the time, whether the engine's going or not. But we're making electricity with the steam too. And we had the fire turned way down.
Oh, I see. Now, when it's time to go, can you tell me what the different steps will be that you go through?
Well, right now, all I'll have to do is turn up the fire and get up full steam and start the engine. It's that simple right now. Because we've been going, the engine is already lubricated, everything is ready to go.
I saw a big lever here.
That's the reversing lever. When a locomotive, they call it the Johnson bar. That throws the valves over so that we put the stern valve in action rather than the head valve.
Does the engine start going?
The engine actually reverses.
And what's that other bar there on the wheel?
That's a throttle valve. We use the throttle to give what he wants, and then we use the oil pressure to control the steam pressure. The skipper or the man up in the pilot house tells us what he wants to do by the telegraph, and then we respond to it.
And the telegraph, that's just, is it a system of the bell codes?
That's the bells that communicate with it, yeah.
And what, can you describe what those codes are?
Oh, well, you see the hand in the middle will point to what he wants, and then we push the handle on the outside to match it, to let him know that we've gotten the signal.
Oh, I see. The bell is just to alert your attention.
The bell is to alert us that he wants to do something.
Well, Virginia 5 is known as the last of the mosquito fleet. The term mosquito fleet was comprised of the fact that about 4 o'clock every afternoon, some 75 years ago, so many small steamers would depart Seattle in so many different directions that it appeared to somebody to be a swarm of mosquitoes, you might say. We have 282 islands on Puget Sound, and every one of them had one or more boats. And this one was built to haul between Tacoma, Washington, and Seattle down the west side of Vashon Island. It carried the produce to market for all the farms on the island, and also carried freight as well as passengers. Carried Model A's, horses and buggies, cattle. Once had a bull jump over the rail on the third deck, hit the water like a rock, and he wasn't very happy about the whole thing, and they took him an hour to get him out of the water and back up there again. He hoisted him up on a lifeboat davit with a big sling around his stomach, tied him down for the rest of the trip. But she was important to the community. They all were. They tied in the outlying islands and the communities. Wherever they crossed water, there were no bridges, no roads, no ferry boats as we know them today.
This was before the automobile.
Sure, yeah. That came in about 1939. That was the end of this boat. This boat was retired from its original run in 1938 because of the California ferries coming to town. When they completed the bridges in San Francisco, they released quite a large fleet. And the blackball system picked them up, brought them to Seattle. Almost immediately, some 70 of these boats were put on the beaches and burned for the scrap. And the scrap was sent to Japan, along with Seattle streetcar tracks. But this one just happened to be on the Columbia River at the time. She went north in 42, or went south in 42, and worked as the last night steamer on the Portland-Astoria run. And she was there about a year and a half. When she come back to town, she was the only one left. So she's unique in that fact. It changed hands many times. Our foundation got a hold of it in 1979. Virginia 5 Foundation set up to restore it, keep it in operation. That's been our project now for many years. The engine was constructed here in Seattle in 1898 by a company called Heffernan Engine Company, or Heffernan Engine Works. They used to be down on the waterfront near the ferry terminal. The engine was one of 3 built for the government that year, and it was to be a spare engine for a mine layer. They didn't use the engine, and in 1904 they surplused it and went into an old Puget Sound steamer called Tyrus. In time, that boat became the Virginia 4, and it was an older boat with that new engine. In 1922, they were looking around for a replacement hull and couldn't find anything suitable, so they built this boat. So she was built for the engine room that's in it. You'll see that the pumps, the engine, the condenser, everything come out of the old Tyrus. And still runs like a clock. The engine's never been completely overhauled.
I just don't like diesel. Banging, slamming, beating itself to pieces. This is steam engine. This is steam. Steam is nice, easy going. That's right. You don't need to overhaul a steamship all the time like you do diesel engine.
They last forever, almost.
Here's a good example of it.
Yeah, it's been running pretty steady since 1898.
Several reasons. One of them is it's steam. It has natural lubrication in the condensate. And the other one is there's no products of combustion in it. The temperature's lower. The temperature never goes above the temperature of the steam, where in the diesel, the temperature goes way up. Tremendous.
Really, do you think this boat could be a model for future boats, made in this image?
Well, the Liberty ships were. During World War II, every Liberty ship had an engine like this in it.
It's a lot bigger.
6 times as big as this, that's all.
Did you ever work on an engine run with a big ship like that?
Oh yeah, bigger than that. That Liberty ship is a little one compared to ocean vessels. That's a 2,500 horse. And they go up 6,000, 8,000, 9,000. instead of just 2,500 like we're paying.
You worked on ships like that?
That's all I did before. Up to before, during, and immediately after the war, I was at sea. When you come onto a little baby like this, it's a little baby. Hold it right, good.